We are live. Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Shama. I am the program director for Girls and Geese. We are here for yet another edition of Ask a Black Belt. Today we have Kendall Reusing with us. How are you doing today, Kendall?
I am doing great. I'm just getting my setup going here. I'm like having my computer like balanced on books to make it higher, and it's just not very professional.
It's okay. Don't worry.
I'm making it work though.
Uh, so how have you been? What have you been up to lately?
I've been good, but I mean I think a little bit like everybody else. There's a lot of overwhelming stuff going on. So it's been I've been good, but I've also been kind of taking some time to digest everything and just try to be a little introspective about all the stuff that's going on. But I think everyone's processing things in a different way. And it's weird. We were about to open our gyms back up, and then after coronavirus, and then things got crazy again with the curfews and stuff. So we're kind of I am a full-time athlete, and I'm a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete, but I'm also a
Mhm.
full-time business owner. So it's been weird balancing both.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a full plate.
Yeah.
So how this works for all of you guys at home is that's watching is any question you have, post it up in the comments. We'll go over them. And Kendall will ask them. So go ahead and post if you guys have anything. And I just had a few questions. I mean, I know you're a part of that generation of jiu-jitsu practitioners now who have basically been training almost as long as they've been walking. We saw the likes of Mackenzie Dern is probably, is a part of amongst that as well. Um, how I know did you take it when you went to college and you were wrestling, did you take any time off from jiu-jitsu? Was it the first kind of break or did you continue to train?
No, I took a huge break from jiu-jitsu from age like 13 to like 18. So I took like 5.5 years away from jiu-jitsu. It was weird because my parents still ran the schools full time and I was still like somewhat involved, but I wasn't training. Like every once in a while I'd like pop into a competition, but I wasn't training at all. I was super focused on wrestling. So yeah, I took a long break, like 5.5 years.
Was there like a combination of factors or just maybe something wasn't a focus or is that when you really started wrestling was at
It,
13?
it was really just wrestling. So I did jiu-jitsu. For those of you guys who don't know, I did jiu-jitsu from age 5 until like age 12, really seriously, really like from age 5 to like 10, super seriously, where I was like training every day, competing every single competition, doing judo as well. I started judo at a young age. I think I was 7. And then when I was 10 is when it was about the time that my parents 10, 11. I think I was like 11 when my parents opened their school and we moved cities to do so. And that was like around the time where I kind of started fading away from jiu-jitsu a little bit. I was still around it. I was helping teach, but I was doing gymnastics and I wasn't training as seriously. And then when I went into high school, I had to do a PE credit and I didn't like PE, thought it was dumb. And I thought that wrestling would be a great way to learn takedowns for jiu-jitsu. So I started wrestling.
Mhm.
But then quickly was introduced to the opportunities within wrestling and the Olympics, which was like probably the driving force behind a lot of this because jiu-jitsu wasn't in the Olympics and I wanted to go to the Olympics and I loved wrestling and anything I've ever done, I've done 100%. So I got super into that. And I was really excited about how like in wrestling there was like a USA team and they had like all these international competitions you could go to with the team and they had this Olympic training center. So I started getting very, very involved, but it was definitely 100% wrestling. Like my family was still involved in jiu-jitsu. I was just competing full time in another sport.
Mhm.
So for those of you, and obviously you and for other people listening who know, when you're doing one sport full time, it's not that you can't do other things, but if you're like, I want to be the Olympic champion, then you're not going to be doing other sports. So
Yeah.
that's really what happened. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was my focus.
No, and that makes sense. It's an all or nothing type of situation. Now that you're, uh, are you still wrestling or like as like a hop? Are you still training for where are you at in your wrestling career?
Yeah, so good question. Like with wrestling, it's year round. So that's another thing too I meant to mention. It's year round depending on what styles you're wrestling. But so for me, I was wrestling year round and I am now only doing jiu-jitsu full time. So when I was 18, I came back from my first year at college and because I had wrestled in college for a year and then I came back and I decided to stop wrestling for a lot of reasons. But the number one thing is that I was having a really big issue with weight cutting, because with women's wrestling, the highest weight class internationally for women is 165, and I was walking around like 185, trying to lose 20 pounds every week, and I was
Wow.
so miserable. Yeah, I developed a lot of really bad situations, and that's kind of why like I weigh like 180, 185, and the highest weight class for women in jiu-jitsu is 175 and above for IBJJF. But I just choose not even to worry about dropping the weight, because for me it becomes an issue. So that's the main reason I ended up stopping wrestling, just so I could get healthy. But I really was like, it was devastating, to leave my Olympic dream, and that's a whole another 30-minute conversation. So I stopped wrestling. I started jiu-jitsu again and really developed my love for it again. And jiu-jitsu really saved, like people always say, jiu-jitsu saved my life. And I think the way that, I mean, that could go in a lot of different directions for me since I grew up on the mats. But one of the biggest ways jiu-jitsu saved my life is that it gave me an outlet to focus on and move full steam ahead when I had to leave my other dream behind. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done with myself. I don't know if I would have been able to leave wrestling if I hadn't had this other path I could chose to go down. So then I started jiu-jitsu full time. I'm 22 now, so it's been, I think, 3.5 years since I came back to jiu-jitsu. Yeah, something like that, about 3 years. And so ever since then, I've been doing jiu-jitsu full time again. So no more wrestling, although I use it a lot in my matches.
And yeah, exactly. I'm sure it really helps you within your jujitsu game, because it's,
Yeah.
the huge part of getting to the ground. It's either that or judo typically, you know. What so you recently just had an incredible matchup. You went up against Gabi Garcia, who's a legend,
Yeah.
amongst women. What was that like going in, and can you describe that whole process?
Yeah, it wasn't a really interesting match because I've been watching her since I was really young. And growing up, I always imagined myself going with her one day. I kind of thought the same thing growing up about like Bia Mesquita, Mackenzie Dern. Those were people that I watched and looked up to. Anna Laura, Annette Stack as well. So I always kind of knew that was coming, but I honestly I didn't know it would happen so quickly. I just got my black belt in July, and I think that, like, I mean, just for like some backstory as far as ADCC goes, which she's really predominantly taken over. 2017, I took second place in the trials as a blue belt. That's when I just came back from college. 2019, I separated my ribs off of my sternum, like they were pulled out right before the trials, so I didn't end up doing it. And I was on the short list of the invitations, but I didn't end up getting invited. So this whole time I'm thinking about ADCC, and I kind of thought like, oh, eventually I'll fight Gabi Garcia in ADCC. I didn't really see it happening so quickly, because then I was like, well, after I didn't make it in 2019, I was like, oh, it's probably not going to be until 2021. So anyway, when I got the call, it was actually in the beginning of this year, like in January or February. But then everything got canceled because of coronavirus. So then when it came up again, I was actually really excited because I had already been thinking about it. So going into the fight, I think that one of the things that sets me apart from a lot of people that compete against her is I think a lot of people lose before the match even starts because they get really scared. Of course, because of her accomplishments, but also because of her size and her power. I mean, she has probably around 80 pounds on me, and I'm not a small girl. I'm like 185. So you can imagine the girls who go in who are, 160, 150. It's an even bigger gap. So I think a lot of people go into the match scared that they're going to lose, and so they lose before it starts. So for me, I was really focused the whole time on like, I have a great game plan. She's never gone against someone with my skills and my size combined, because normally they're smaller and they have great skills, or they're bigger and they're a little less skilled. So I thought that was on my side. I did a lot of training going in. I really only had like 10 days notice for the fight, or like 2 weeks notice for the fight. So we did as much training as we could. We also thought she was going to come in. We were told she was going to come in about 30, 40 pounds lighter than she did. And that was kind of my mistake, because I game planned for that instead of game planning for more of a power disadvantage. And I kind of went in naive that way. I think I underestimated how much that was going to play a part in things, which is on me to adjust my game, of course. So going into the match, I felt excited. I was super confident. I actually had a great mindset going into the fight. Like, fighter, as you know, any fighters that are listening, as you guys know, sometimes you go in feeling great, sometimes not so great, and it's something we train for. And it's I just focus on sports psychology. So going into the fight, I felt great, and in the fight, I felt great, but I was really frustrated with. Did you see the fight?
Yeah.
Did you watch it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really frustrated with the stage because my game plan revolved so heavily on like um collar ties and moving past that collar tie to get to the back. So then every time I was circling, I was getting shoved off the stage, then I'd have to stop. So that was like another thing I needed to adjust for. But all in all, like I posted some things about it because there were some comments and some commentary around it, which is a good thing because it grows women's jiu-jitsu, so I don't mind.
Exactly.
But I posted some things about it, just saying like it was a great experience. I wouldn't change anything. I think that going into this fight a second time, having a little more awareness around just how strong or just how much how that was going to feel, and especially on a mat that's not a stage, but even if it's that, I can work around that. Then there's ways that I can create angles faster and with a little more intent that I think can help win me the match next time. So it was definitely a great fight, but I think the reason I have a good chance going in a second time, is because I don't go in scared, and so I don't beat myself before the fight starts.
I think that's an excellent point. Is you do. I think in a lot of things, people go in with that kind of defeated, and that just screws it up. You know, you lost it before you even started. You know, but
Yeah,
not.
and I've been in fights like that too. Like you know, us fighters, like we know a lot of the time we know the things that we're supposed to feel before a good match. We know what we're supposed to say to ourselves. Sometimes it feels more believable than others. And there have been times where I like tried to get myself in the right mindset and I kind of knew that I wasn't really feeling it. And going into the match, I kind of knew I had already lost before I'd even start. And I maybe not like consciously understood that because I was still trying to get myself hyped up, but looking back, it was there. Like that subconscious feeling was there. And so I'm working on how to perfect that because that's such a huge part of things. So yeah, going in Saturday, honestly, I felt really good. I really thought I was going to win. So that was in itself, that was a great practice, a great mental preparation, and a great experience to take moving forward for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think you'll get your chance again to execute which and come up with a different plan for next
Yeah,
time, considering the circumstances. Now that you know you've experienced it.
yeah, definitely.
What has been some, growing up in jujitsu and now being in adulthood, how do you see different challenges now than you did as a child in jujitsu?
Do you mean like for my personal experience or in
Yeah,
general as a
yeah.
whole? Yeah, man, I see there's things, I mean, things have changed so rapidly, as you know, with women's jiu-jitsu. One of the biggest things where, like when I came back from wrestling, it was in the early spring or in the late spring because I just come back from the school year. So it was right before the Worlds and Pan Ams, and so I went to Pan Ams and Worlds, and I was sitting with one of our teammates, and he kind of explained to me like how like Bia and Mackenzie and Dominica and these big names in women's jiu-jitsu afterwards would be going on seminars and having sponsorships and actually making money. And for me, you know, I had been away from jiu-jitsu for 5 years, and 5 years prior to that, that was not happening. Women couldn't make money in jiu-jitsu. The men were barely making anything, like barely making ends meet, let alone the women. And so there's definitely a different situation happening here where, you know, we have real sponsorship deals, we have real ways to make money, like Fight to Win pays very fairly for their athletes, the women included. The women and men do not get paid differently in Fight to Win, um, which is important. And I think that there's a lot more opportunity than there used to be. Like, especially when I think back to being a kid, I was like the only girl on the mats. Like me and the professor's daughter were like the only kids, the only girls in the kids class. Um, and now we have, I teach obviously, and I have so many little girls that are just absolutely fierce and amazing. And to have so many more female instructors and moms doing jiu-jitsu, it's just really changed the culture. And to be honest, like obviously, you know, I'm part of Gracie Baja, and we have focused a lot on growing our schools around the world. So not just creating great competitors, but making sure we bring jiu-jitsu to everybody. And one of the biggest parts of growing jiu-jitsu was getting the women and the children on the mats, because women and children were getting tired of never seeing their dad and husband because they were always at jiu-jitsu, and they were like in some fight club with the sweaty dudes that we wanted nothing to do with. And they had to make room for us if they wanted jiu-jitsu to survive. If they wanted to make money, they had to make a place for us, because the schools weren't going to last, they weren't going to be as prosperous as they are now. And I think we have really created a longevity for jiu-jitsu that didn't really exist before. Not in the same way, at least. It was more, well, things just were fight club back then, really. I remember even that as a kid. Like, even my mom has some funny stories. Like, my mom's a brown belt. She should be a black belt, but the last few years she's been really focused on the business. And I started first, and she was a really high level gymnast as a kid. And so my dad wanted her to join. He knew she'd love it, but she was like, roll around with those sweaty dudes. Like, they're so big, like 300-pound dudes. Like, why? And then she got started after I did, and then some more girls. And I just think there's so much more opportunity. Like, of course there's always more to fight for. Like, I never want to say that the job is done. There's always more to do, but part of part of doing that job is taking the opportunities that we have and demanding more, and demanding eyeballs on us and attention, so that we can make those asks. One thing I think gets really troubling with athletes, and it's a really controversial topic, is athletes wanting to get paid more and have more in their sponsorship deals. And it's like, yes, you're amazing, you deserve this, but it's a monetary transaction. If you bring money to the organization, or you bring money to the company, or to Flow Grappling, whatever, whoever it is, then they are going, it's a business. It's not just like, oh, I like you, you're cute, here's, you won the worlds one time, here's the deal you won. So I think as women, we actually have a very special place in this, because we are very marketable, right? Well, there's so many jiu-jitsu women that are marketable in a lot of different areas: health, beauty, fitness, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's up to us to really spread our fingers into other areas of media and other areas of publication, to get more eyes on us, so that we can start making those demands. And I think we're seeing that happening now, and that's definitely my goal. So it's been awesome to watch.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I started 17 years ago when there were no opportunities for women,
Yes.
at all. Like, you never imagine the opportunities that are out there now. And it's phenomenal to see. And your generation and the generations after, it's just going to keep opening up more and more opportunities. And 100% agree. Women are very marketable. They
Mm-hmm.
are excellent for promoting, business. Because if you get a woman interested in a product, then she'll buy for the kids, she'll buy for
Yep.
her husband, and then she'll buy for herself. So
Yeah,
no,
totally.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point you're making too. And it, like, women want to buy from women. Women want to buy from other women. And I think it's funny you say 17 years, because we must have started the same year when I was 5, because I'm 22. So must have started at the same time, which is really funny. But yeah, there was nothing, like, not even
No,
really for the men even, so
no.
um I think we've had some amazing women ahead of us that have really paved the way. So I named some of them earlier: Anna Laura, Annette Stack, Hillary. So we've
Mhm.
had some amazing trailblazers, and I'm excited to see what comes in the next few generations for the men and the women, because, man, the men work so hard. Like, it's hard when you compare jiu-jitsu to other sports. You think about the NFL, the MLB, things like that, and it's like, man, like, I wish, we were getting paid like $20 million on a contract and stuff, but at the same time, like, it's up to us. If we want to bring the money to our sport, we have to bring the eyeballs. So you're seeing a lot of cool organizations try new rule sets and make things really exciting, and try to bring in eyeballs from other sports and stuff. And I think that's a really important thing for us to do on one end. And on the other end, kind of what we're talking about earlier, is branching out into other streams of media and publication. Like, especially for women, I think health, beauty, fitness, like Cosmo, when you think about stuff like that, even that may be controversial, like anything like that is like, that's totally mainstream. If we can put jujitsu in that, it's going to change things for real. So I'm
Oh yeah,
excited about it.
big game changer for sure.
Totally.
What in I mean, you're far from leaving your legacy. I think you have a lot more to do, but like, at this point in time, what impacts or what legacy do you want to leave in jiu-jitsu?
Um, I think I want to leave the legacy of being one of the most winningest female jiu-jitsu athletes in the world to have ever been, you know, kind of like the Bia Mosquedas and the Gabi Garcias. I want to, you know, I want to top that, and I want to win the world's absolute a lot of times, and ADCC a lot of times. But more than that, I really hope to leave a legacy of learning to live the life and the lifestyle that you have, whether you come out on top or not. I think you see this more in the not more, but it's more prominent, or it's more noticeable in the Olympics, because it's a 4-year cycle, you know. So I've been around a lot of these athletes, you know, they live their entire life for this one day every 4 years. And if they try this cycle 3 times, that's 12 years of their life, right? And a lot of times they're way out of their prime by the end of that 12 years, and they never made the Olympic team. They barely came in second place. They were one of the top athletes in the world, but they look back and they feel like they wasted 12 years of their life because they didn't accomplish this very specific dream on 3 specific days out of 12 years. So when you think about that, you know, like me, like we have the world championships every year, we have ADCC every other year. Of course I have big dreams and I have big goals, but one of my major goals, and it's more important than the specific titles, is that I enjoy my day-to-day life, and I live in love with the people around me. I'm spreading love. I'm living in a way that I respect, that I'm happy about, that I can look back and one day, if I don't accomplish, if I never win ADCC, like I don't want to say that because of course that's a big goal, but if I never won it ever in my life, I want to look back and be happy about the life that I lived. And I want to be an example of that to a lot of young athletes, especially the women, because for me, I feel like there was a stigma coming up that, like, if it wasn't the most important thing to you, number one, if you didn't sacrifice everything, if you weren't miserable and grinding 24 hours a day every day, then you don't deserve it, and you're not the champion prototype. Yeah. And I've just learned over 17 years of being a combat athlete every day of my life that that's not necessarily true. It's just not, but we're taught that, and it's really ingrained. And I want to be an example of the fact that that's not true, that you can live a happy, prosperous, wonderful life on the days that you win and on the days that you lose. Because of course it's fun to win, you know, but then like when I lost to Gabi Garcia, like I was really upset that night, and especially with being in Dallas with the riots and everything, it was very emotional. And just throughout the last few days, I've been reflecting, like, no, like I really love my life. Like whether I won or lost on that day, I had amazing people around me. I'm safe. I'm healthy. My family is healthy. Like I love training. I love eating healthy foods. I love the lifestyle that comes with jiu-jitsu. I love to teach. So it's all good, you know, and that's enough. And that's enough. And I still win. I think that's the thing that gets these athletes. They're like, well, you can't be relaxed and feel like that if you want to win. Because if you do that, then that's not intense enough. But no, I just won the Nogi. I double gold the Nogi Worlds in December. Like you can have both, you know? So I think that's really a long version of the answer of like the legacy I want to leave, is that you can have it all. You just have to be willing to accept, you know, the ups and the downs of having it all.
Absolutely. I am of the philosophy is you don't know what the ups are without the downs.
100%. I totally agree. I think that's huge. And you don't really see very much until you look back later on, right? That's kind of what you're getting at. Like you just, in the moment, you just don't know. We have to learn to love the moments that we're in, because we're not going to know until we look back later if it was a positive or a negative thing for the rest of our life.
Exactly.
But there's so many moments that feel horrible in them. I've had so many moments that were like the worst. I was like, this cannot be possibly happening to me. Like my life is horrible. And looking back, I'm like, thank God. Oh my God. If that didn't happen, like it's crazy. So we just don't know. You're right.
Absolutely. Oh, it was such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for being a part of our Ask a Black Belt segment. I look forward to seeing everything that you do. I think you're just starting that trajectory, and I look forward to seeing where it takes you. And thank you so much, and good luck with everything in reopening, and stay safe out there.
Of course. Good luck to you guys too. I know Hawaii is pretty like self-quarantined right now, right? Like
we are. I think they just started opening it up to. They're talking about maybe letting tourists back in. I think they're just letting people from Japan right now.
It's hard with such a tourist-heavy economy, but
we've tanked out pretty bad.
I can imagine. Well, praying for you guys and sending you guys love. It's been crazy for so many, and I just think if we're all a little more kind and compassionate to each other, there's no harm in that. So that's my goal in all of this. But Thank you for having me on. I had a great time. I really appreciate it.